You know, when you owe something and when you come to the last payment and you go to the bank or you just pay and then you get that letter fully paid, it seems like a yoke came off your neck. And you love that feeling. It's because Mammon just got released from you, but not before taking a hell of a lot of money out of you. Debt keeps people down. And the more you chase, the more debt, and the more you drown. A very good morning to all our Trinity International family members from all over. Welcome to our Sunday morning service. Some of you are accustomed to receiving the word of the Lord through us on a Sunday morning, and I thank you for your patronage, supporting us, making sure that God's word travels through the air. Thank you for sustaining this ministry. May God bless you. This morning might be a little shorter than normal, but I want to try and be poignant. But let me start first by sharing with you some developments that have been revealed recently. There is a project called Blue Beam. Originally, it was in the 1950s and 1960s, it was called Project Blue Book. Now, I have accessed the public records of the FBI vault, and in it you will see Project Blue Book. Now, from these files, which I have studied, called Project Blue Book, it's terminated in 1969. It was about strange sightings in the sky, which everybody calls UFOs. The matter was initially, the project was conducted by the United States Air Force, and we went into quite some detail about how they operate and the secrecy behind it. But these files, after it was closed in 1969, was handed to the FBI, another three-letter word or name in the American government structure. Now the operation Project Blue Book is called Project Blue Beam, and there's a reason for that. And it continued to operate under the FBI. Now an ex-FBI agent tells us a little more about this Project Blue Beam. Let's take a listen.
I can't believe what this former FBI agent just revealed.
What I'm here to tell people is that when Project Blue Beam is used, again, it's not going to be by the United States. It's not going to be by national. It's going to be by global government. They're the ones who are going to use this stuff. And it's going to be not just a bunch of pretty holograms. They're going to be using it for religious figures. They're going to have Jesus in the sky, but it's not just going to be holograms. There's going to be voice-to-skull technology. It's also going to be used. They're going to be able to have these figures speak to every human being on the planet. Imagine the impact of that they're going to be able to see the figure and also hear the figure talking to them. You know, it's amazing. I think that is the particular reason why Jesus said in the Bible, my sheep hear my voice and they will recognize my voice. And I think that was an anticipation of when this operation goes forward.
Now, this is not the only person sharing. There are others, numerous. Let's just take a listen to another one.
Have you heard about Project Bluebeam? The theory goes, governments around the world are trying to create a new religion with the Antichrist as its leader as we transition into the New World Order. First step will be breaking down all of the archaeological knowledge. They'll do this by creating earthquakes at precise locations, which will uncover new fake discoveries, which will appear to prove all religions to be fake. The second step will be using new laser hologram technology to make people believe they are seeing different gods coming down from the heavens that will speak in all languages, before merging into one god, the Antichrist. The third step will be using a new telepathic technology to send audio messages directly into people's brain, telling them that an alien invasion is about to happen in every major city. This will be perceived as God talking to the people, and will likely be perceived as the rapture to many Christians. The end goal is to create chaos, hysteria, and madness, resulting in majority of humanity being very afraid. And the best way to control someone is to make them afraid. Then the final stage, people will be forced to implant a chip, or the mark of the beast, allowing complete control over humanity and the end individual freedom. A true one world government. And most of this technology already exists today, so the question isn't if they will use it. The real question is, will they use it? What do you think?
Now, in these video clips, you would have seen that there is a next stage to project involved in Project Bluebeam, and that is to hijack the neural senses of human beings so that they can receive through frequency manipulation and acoustic manipulation voices, audio, so that people can hear. Now, in the 2000s, there was a patent filed, a concept that was proven to be successful, therefore a patent was filed, and it sits in the patent logs you might be able to access. The patent number is, as you will see on your screen, and the patent is called Subliminal Acoustic Manipulation of Nervous Systems. In the abstract, it suggests in human subjects, sensory resonances can be excited by subliminal atmospheric acoustic pulses that are tuned to the resonance frequency. The half-hertz sensory resonance affects the autonomic nervous system and may cause relaxation, drowsiness, or even sexual excitement depending on the precise acoustic frequency near half hertz used. All this knowledge that we have now accumulated regarding the nefarious goings on, we come to a reasonable conclusion that there seems to be a plan in place to introduce a one world religious movement, inculcating all the other religions and adopting a single one. But for Christians to receive this, it's going to be a little difficult, because most Christians are quite aware of the plan of the end of days, and they will not fall for it. So the only way to introduce this is to manipulate the skies through Project Bluebeam, more like an advanced holographic projection in the sky, to show the coming of Jesus sitting in the clouds with an audio track that goes with it. And what is the purpose of that? To excite Christians into believing that the prophecy of the Bible has finally come to pass. Christians looking up at this projection might get goosebumps and think the time has come. However, what they will be seeing is the results and actions of Project Bluebeam. Why is this important for me to note to you? Because Jesus warned us about such a thing. Now, although they will try to create this holographic image throughout the world simultaneously, it won't be possible. They will only be able to broadcast these things segments at a time. While one parts will be able to see, the other parts won't. So it's not going to be like what Jesus said it's going to be. Everybody will see. This is going to be, as much as they want to try and create this simultaneous vision among people, it's not going to be successful. But Jesus foresaw the plan, and he warns us in the book of Matthew. And it says then, Jesus is telling his disciples, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms. Do not believe it, for as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So, it seems like Jesus is preparing his children for the day of his coming. And he warns us. You see, in those days, there was no such a thing as Project Bluebeam. It's a manipulation for Christian people, and Jesus says even the elect, if possible, can be deceived. It's a very deceptive idea that has been put together by the chief of deceivers, Satan himself. Now, just so you know that if this thing happens, do not be alarmed. Do not get excited. Because when he comes, his voice, his children will hear, and there will be no time for even looking up. You will fly with him and go up there. Now, let's go on to this morning's actual sermon. We spoke about Mammon, this goddess of wealth. But I want to go slightly more deeper into the god of this world's premier demon. Satan's premier demon, Mammon or Mammon. Now in the Wikipedia we read, Mishnaic Hebrew, meaning money, wealth or possessions. Now this is very important, the next part. It may have also meant that in which one trusts. Hold that thought. Now if you look at the $1 bill, and in fact bills of any other country in the world, you will find that this is written there, in God we trust. This Mishnaic Hebrew had no idea that our money is going to have these things. But it seems as though Mammon refers to the God in which we trust, which is on the United States currency, and above that is the all-seeing eye, and we know that reflects Satan. So, in the one that we trust is the name substituted for Mammon. And for this reason, I'm just jumping the gun a little bit, Jesus said, you cannot serve two masters. He used the word Mammon and he used the word God. Because Mammon is the one in which we would trust, or God is the one in which we would trust. So, if you have that in your mind, you will be able to see the picture that I'm trying to create for you about who the premier demon of Satan is. Now, according to Meta, the AI program that searches all databases, it came up with this. This is what it said to me. Let's break down the word, the Greek word Mammon. The first part is a prefix, ma, that means great or exalted. In other words, ma is someone great, exalted, or superior. And so, principalities and powers of high places, this is one of them. The first part is ma. And this is why sometimes we call our mothers ma. It's made from the same tone of thought about word pronunciation. Ma, exalted one. And then you get the second part, mon. And it's a suffix. It's the second part of the word that means mind or spirit. So if we put the two together, we get exalted mind or great spirit. So Mammon is not money. Mammon is the spirit that is overseeing money. In other words, overseeing wealth, overseeing prosperity. This is the demon that was offered to Jesus to oversee his prosperity when it was offered to him after the 40 days of fasting. In Hebrew, the same word is, you see there's no vowels in Hebrew. So in the Hebrew, the word is M-M-N. Min. So you pronounce it as min. That's how you pronounce the word M-M-N. And the root word is to trust, to rely on, or to have confidence in. So there we go, in God we trust. It comes from, literally, it comes from the word Mammon. Now, if I were to create a sentence describing Mammon, this is what it will be. To have faith in, to trust and rely on the great spirit of money. And extended, it means to rely on money to give me peace, happiness, satisfaction. You see, when many people are restless, they are agitated, they get depressed because of debt, because they owe, because they need money. And because they are restless, they have no peace inside of them. And they rely on money to grant them that peace. So what actually they rely on? They depend on, they trust in Mammon to bring them peace by giving them what Mammon controls. I hope you understanding this. I am in so much debt that I can't pay. I will have peace and be happy once I have money. In fact, then I'll be able to pray. Then I'll have the peace of mind to pray. When the one I rely on to solve my problems solves them. So it is in that you trust, not in God you trust, the real God. It is in the Mammon God that you trust to create that peace. Because money is not Mammon, it's not evil per se in the sense, but the love of money is the root to inviting Mammon, which means that a man would really and truly, if that's going to grant him peace and joy and happiness, then he really worships that great spirit, the one in which he relies on. I hope I'm getting through. If money alters your peace of mind in any way, the great spirit of Mammon is taking control of your life. You see, when you want wisdom, God will give you wisdom. When you want spiritual authority, God will give you that. But when you want money, there's a God for that also. And God is wanting to distinguish between the two. If you trust in God, He will supply all your needs. If you trust in Mammon, He will only attempt to supply the money that you need. But that, as we know, does not create peace. People with money will know that. People who are not of God, that is, they'll know that. Now, let me show you how Mammon can take control. If you start to create arguments at home regarding money, there is an indication now that Mammon is trying to get into your home. And before you know it, he is not already in charge of that home. He is coming to take over in that home. If money creates hatred inside of you because somebody robbed you, somebody stole from you, then it's an indication that Mammon is coming to take root in your heart. If there is unforgiveness as a result of a loss of things, possessions and money, there is an indication that Mammon is coming. If you get severely depressed because of money issues, there is an indication Mammon is coming. If he's not coming, he's already there, taken possession. If you hoard money, then the God of money, Mammon, is in charge of your life because you have a fear of losing it. If you've deceived somebody for financial gain, then the great spirit, remember it's a great spirit, it's one of Satan's premier demons, it's a great high-ranking spirit. It is the number one spirit that roams the face of the earth. It is in which everything is built and made. It's coming to take possession. Now, when you give your life to Satan, Mammon will help you to climb the ladder of physical, material success. When you don't worship Satan, but you act in love of money, but you are in your heart hasn't given your life to Jesus, demon of Mammon can take control. And this time, because you're not one of his really, he will cripple your life. I hope you're getting this. So if you're a demonic worshipper and you have Mammon, Mammon will make you rich. If you are a Christ worshipper, but your heart is broken because of money, you're desperate because of money, you're sad, you're worried, you're depressed, you're angry, you have unforgiveness because of money, then this demon is going to take control, and this demon will crush you, will throttle you, will keep you in a yoke of bondage. He's got nothing to gain if he rises you up out of that bondage that you are in financially. So, what's the solution? Let me just preempt everything by telling you this. If you start to practice, I trust only in God. If I have a problem, I trust in God. If I get, I get. If I don't get, I don't get. If this has to go, it's going to go. I will remain still in God. Still. No movement emotionally. I'm talking about emotional stillness. Peace no matter what. I trust that God knows my needs. He will take care of it. So I'll remain, and it's in that God we rely on. And when you do that, you break the curse. Mammon will have no option but to be released from you, so that the bondage that he's tied you up in can be broken. But you must rely on God. And you must maintain peace in your heart for that bondage to be broken. For as long as you're in desperation, for as long as you worry about what you will eat and what you drink. These are Jesus' words. This spirit will choke the life out of you and take everything. So, just so that I have that, and I said that so that you can see where you are. Now, I told you that last week I played you some video clips showing you where people who wanted ability to sing, they invited a demonic spirit to help them to do that. To act, they did that. That's because they worship this thing. So it comes in and it gives them ability. Now, money is the same thing. When you worship Mammon, he'll give you the ability. See, money gives you the ability. The ability to have power, to control, to manipulate, to buy, to abuse. He will bless you. And I'm using that bless very loosely. He will come in and he will bless you because you worship him. But the price will be your soul. So just like a demon comes in to give you physical ability of acting or singing, Mammon can come in to give you ability that other people won't have. To have money, to be rich, to have power. This is where Mammon thrives. He holds you in such a chokehold that you crave for him. He wants you to rely on him. And this is how around the world Illuminati members are increasing their membership. Satan worship is on the rise. Christianity, because Mammon has a chokehold on the Christians, their faith falls apart. I hope you are not one of those people whose faith depends on whether they have possessions or money or not. So in other words, Mammon is in control of certain people's peace. If that's the case, then you the puppet and he is the string master. When he pulls, the people dance. In the Talmud, the rabbis give us wisdom. Rabbi Elijah said, now these are the real rabbis. These are the ones who are of genuine Jewish descent. When they write in the Talmud, one who is obsessed with accumulating wealth is like a person who is drowning in the sea. And the more he struggles, the deeper he sinks. I want you to picture this. Those of you that can swim know that when you are in the water and you're drowning, the more you kick, the quicker you sink. The more you fight with the water, the quicker you sink. The more you struggle, the quicker you sink. And Rabbi is telling us, this is what money does. And one who is obsessed with the spirit of Mammon, there he goes, he's telling you it's a demonic spirit. Is like a person who is chasing after the wind. And the more he runs, the further he falls behind. You cannot catch the wind. It goes further. The relentless pursuit of wealth can lead to a kind of spiritual drowning, where one becomes increasingly entangled in the pursuit of more. It's a trap. The spirit of Mammon can be an elusive and unfulfilling goal, like chasing after the wind, which can never be caught. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. The wisdom of Solomon confirms, for God gives wisdom and knowledge, yes, and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner, listen what he does to the sinner. He gives the work of gathering and collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Here he confirms what the rabbi told us. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus talks about these issues. Then one of the crowd said to him, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. What was that man? He came to a crusade with Jesus, standing there, and he asks Jesus this question. He says, tell my brother, Lord, to give me part of my inheritance. He stole from me. That was his mind. That's where his mind is. And be honest, lots of Christians go to church because of that. They want what belongs to them, and the preacher is going to bless them, and they're going to carry that anointing, and they're going to get what belongs to them. This is the mindset of a lot of people. In verse 15, and he said to him, now Jesus rebuked him before that, but I'm skipping that one verse, and he said to him, take heed and beware of covetousness. You coveting that inheritance. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of things he possesses. So your identity, Jesus is confirming, has nothing to do with Mammon controlling the things that you have. Then he spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And this rich man thought to himself, saying, what shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and gather and build greater ones. There I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take ease, eat, drink, and be merry. In other words, the fact that I have, this rich man is saying, the fact that I have extra now gives me peace of mind. So my peace of mind is not based on God. It's based on how much of material I have in my barn. And here Jesus says, but God said to him, fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided? So God is saying you cannot trust for your peace, for your happiness, for your be able to eat and drink and have fun now because hey, I'm a peace of mind, I got money. You cannot rely on that for the peace, because then you are the puppet and Mammon is the puppeteer. And Jesus continues, so is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. Your pursuit of God must supersede your pursuit of anything else. So why do we pursue more? It is the lust of the eyes and the pride of life that causes human beings to pursue more. I want to be like my brother-in-law. He is driving such a beautiful car, He was able to buy a house. And you know that brother I go to church with, he did so well last year, he was able to buy his wife her own car. The lust of the eyes. You must watch his watch, the watch he wears. Oh, it's got a diamond in it. The lust of the eyes want us to push for more. The pride of life, when I will be able, to feel a sense of pride and dignity. I won't have people looking down on me. I want to have some kind of pride in myself that I have done well. So we keep pushing for more. We keep coveting. So if a person especially who is possessed by a spirit of mammon, that person is going to pursue it unstoppable. And if he's a Christian, the more he pursues it, the more he'll drown. You see, once you get possessed with the spirit of mammon, it goes into your genes. It's locked into your character. This spirit goes right at the core of your existence. Possession means it's inside you now, in the core of your being, in your DNA. Therefore, when you have children, that spirit will pass on from generation to generation. It has happened with the banking families that were corrupt, and everybody else follow. It's like an alcoholic. The spirit of alcoholism embodies you and then passes itself on to the children, grandchildren. It's the same with sexual deviants. Whoever their parents and grandparents were, they will be. It's the same with mammon. It passes from one generation to the next. And if you are possessed with mammon, but you're a Christian, you haven't given your life to Satan, it will choke you. You won't be able to buy your own house. You will suffer for the days you live here financially. And that same spirit that passed on to your children will have the same consequence until you break it. And the way to break it is to totally depend on God, Jesus Christ. Then you will break that curse. In my family, I felt that was a curse also. Because it was like a poverty hold on the family. And when I was renting all along, and I told my church the story of how difficult it was. Until I came to this realization, wait, my dependence must be totally on God. I will not be depressed. I will not feel smaller because I don't have. I will not feel inferior to anybody. My identity has nothing to do with my possessions. And so when I started to adopt this new attitude, I felt the chains break. And I was the first in the family to own something of my own, a house. That's because the chains were loosed. And many people need those chains gone. Now, can you imagine if this spirit mammon takes over the whole world? If, in other words, as people get possessed, how many you think are possessed with mammon after everything I've shared with you? Quite a number, I would say. And can you imagine a world like this? You will have corruption in government, you will have injustices and economic injustice causing great suffering, poverty, human greed you will see everywhere, murder, exploitation by Christians over others. You'll see it from the pulpit. Corrupt preaching, you'll see it from the pulpit. Yeah, you will. That's what will happen if mammon is possessing many people. But we don't have to wait to see, it's already happening. Can you imagine if that mammon is inside your workplace? That person will do everything possible to climb over you to get ahead of you. Can you imagine the same spirit in people in your own household, at your schools, in the communities, among your friends? Imagine that spirit of mammon inside there. How will you think they will behave? When you look for the signs, you will see it. Now, mammon has transitioned. This great spirit, exalted spirit mammon, it went beyond want. So it doesn't just attract the lust of the eyes. It's not what you want. It goes on to need. It wants to make people need. So it's not just want. It makes people put in a position that they now need something. And once you need it, you have to rely on the God of money. That's what it wants people in a way to behave. And the way the world is designed for people to need is to design a world that lives on debt, that depends on debt to survive. And they created the perfect scenario for the world. You see, because debt takes away peace in general, and people will rely on money to grant them that peace. So, in order to get money, they have to be in debt. They have to create debt to get what they need so that they can be happy. So the world is designed like that. Now I want you to take a look at this video clip that talks about the creation of the Federal Reserve. Watch.
On December 23, 1913, after many senators and congressmen had left town for Christmas, the President Wilson signed a bill and the privately owned Federal Reserve System came into being in the United States. After Woodrow Wilson had signed the Federal Reserve Act, which gave private interests control over economic power in 1913, he said, "I am a most unhappy man. I've unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world, no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." Jewish bankers and their rabbis actually celebrated the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. After the Federal Reserve was up and running, Charles August Lindbergh added, "The financial system has been turned over to the Federal Reserve Board. The system is private, conducted for the sole purpose of obtaining the greatest possible profits for the use of other people's money." The Federal Reserve System was neither federal, nor does it contain reserves, and nor is it a part of a decentralized system. The adoption of the debt-based financial system preached by Marx in the Communist Manifesto had been accomplished. The current banking system, fractional reserve banking, enables privately owned banks to create money out of thin air. Money today is simply numbers in a computer system, with only about 3% existing as physical currency. Through its control and monopoly of our money, the elite that own the Federal Reserve now have total control over other banks, corporations, money, and politicians. The Fed system is designed to enslave us to never-ending debt and to fool us to believe that our money has any real value, when it is in fact worthless, created out of thin air, based on debt, and backed by nothing. It must enslave humanity to protect its monopoly over credit. Its money-creating tricks enabled Big Brother government to borrow endless money from the Fed. The Fed were now controlled by the Jews Rothschild, Warburg, and Schiff. Every Federal Reserve chairman since 1980 has been Jewish: Burns, Volcker, Greenspan, Bernanke, and Yellen. The House of Rothschild owns 57% of the stock of the privately held Federal Reserve Bank.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
The Jew Harold Wallace Rosenthal explained, "Our power has been created through the manipulation of the national monetary system. The Federal Reserve System fitted our plan nicely since it is owned by us, but the name implies that it's a government institution. From the very outset, our purpose was to confiscate all the gold and silver, replacing them with worthless, non-redeemable paper notes. We, Jews, have put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issue, they fail to see who is behind every scene. We Jews glory in the fact that the stupid Goy have never realized that we are the parasites, consuming an increasing portion of production, while the producers are continually receiving less and less." We have to understand that one of the most powerful tools the globalists have for profit and control is war. The most lucrative thing that can happen for the international bankers and the globalists is war, for it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest.
Now, I showed you and I taught you some of this before, but the Federal Reserve has no reserve and is not federal. That has nothing to do with the state, it has nothing to do with the government. It is separate from the government. And it doesn't have any money in reserve of its own. So, but this company, this organization, the Federal Reserve, is in all the countries, well, most countries around the world, they have a Federal Reserve Bank, all of them. And all of them are controlled by a few individuals. In fact, they're primarily controlled not by the government, but by private companies and individuals. If you look at the whole world and all they all are eventually owned, controlled by the Rothschild banking dynasty. Now let me ask you this here, debt-wise. How many of you were in debt of some sort 5 years ago? Now when you look today, how many of you have more debt today in pursuit of more, but you have more debt today than you did 5 years ago? Most people would say, I am in greater debt today than I was 5 years ago. Yet, I earn more today than I did 5 years ago. So, it's like chasing after the wind. And debt is designed by Mammon to put a chokehold. Let me explain how the reserve banks work, or the banking system works in general. When you go to the bank and say, listen, I want to borrow money because I want to buy a car. Okay? The bank has no money, by the way, of its own. They start off with a capital, but they don't use that capital. So they don't have money of their own to give you to buy the car. So what do? They borrow from the country's reserve bank. So they go to the reserve bank and say, listen, we have they don't literally do this, but I'm just showing you the the chain of events. They go to the Reserve Bank and say, I got a client that wants 100,000 to buy a car. And the Federal Reserve also don't have money. No, they don't. They don't have money. But they print money out of thin air. I mean, that's how it used to be. Now it's digital, so they don't even print anymore. But they create money now out of thin air. Who? The Federal Reserve. And then they pay this digital money to the bank. And the bank then pays for your car. But the bank is now going to charge you interest on that car. But they will pay interest at a lower rate to the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve never had money in the first place. They got authority to make money of their own from thin air. And so that's how the credit system works. And if you take a loan today in interest, you will pay about 3 times the value of your car by the time you pay it off. So they've made over 100% profit from you because you created debt. They created money from, the bank created money from nothing because they never had it in the first place to give you. The Federal Reserve received your money now that you kept paying back, and they put it in their vaults, and they have now a reserve of your money, which they made through your bank. Because the bank has to pay them interest as well. And this is how the countries around the world operate, on the strength of the people who are working. And let me tell you about the people who are working. You know, there are 52 weeks in a year. If you divide that by 4, it comes to 13. So you're supposed to have 13 checks every year. But most people have 12 checks. The 13th check you think is a bonus. No, it's due to you. You've worked for 13 months, but they only pay you for 12. And that extra month is something of a profit to the people you work for. So there's more output of your effort and less income of your effort, and that is accumulating debt. So when your output is less than your input, or is more than your input, you are in deficit. That's how debt abounds. And this is how Mammon constructs debt. It binds the entire world in a system of debt. And you know, when you owe something and when you come to the last payment and you go to the bank or you just pay, those days you have to walk in, fill the deposit slip, put the money in, and then you get it. And then you get that letter fully paid. It seems like a yoke came off your neck. And you love that feeling. It's because Mammon just got released from you, but not before taking a hell of a lot of money out of you. Debt keeps people down. And the more you chase, the more debt, and the more you drown. This credit system is all based on interest, your money. That, everything I've shared with you about how you lose the money, I didn't even start to tell you how, besides the Federal Reserve making money from your interest, they also take your tax away. 40% of your income or so, plus minus, is tax. So your input is only 60% of what you're actually putting in, besides the interest and the 1 month short you're getting paid for the year. So this designed network that Mammon, it's brilliantly constructed. And people keep electing the same people over and over again to vote for them. And when they come, people say, why am I going to vote for them? But you're still in the same boat that you were 20 and 30 years ago. In fact, the boat is starting to sink. Have you noticed that you have to have a credit score. In other words, you must have taken a credit somewhere, paid it off, paid interest on it, in order for you to get a loan to buy some or to get a contract. Have you noticed? Nobody will give you a contract until you have a credit score. In other words, you've taken credit, paid interest to somebody and paid it off. So the entire system, please understand this. Mammon has designed it. So the more time passes, generally the more debt people, and it's not designed for the world people. The ones who serve Satan, I'm talking about. It's designed for those, especially whose names are written, to cripple you, to break you, to hurt you, to choke you into hopelessness. So even when you come, even as a Christian, it's, Pastor, I don't want anything. It's not about want. It's about need. That's what he wants to target. The Christian's need. And he runs you into debt using the basis of need. I need this. That's why I have to go and I have to rely on money so that I can at least do this and that in my life. Now the modern day banking was started by the Rothschild, one who changed his name from Meyer, Amschel. He changed it to Rothschild, and I already shared with you what that means, the red one, red shield. Now, when he started banking, in those early days, they started on the principle of trading gold. That's how they used to trade. They traded gold. Now, when they used to trade gold, it came to a point where, like for example, they used to make gold coins and silver coins. But gold, let's specifically look at that. So when you put money in the bank, they pay you your credit interest in gold. And so it slowly evolved, not very long after it started, where they felt that they need to make more out of these loans they're giving people. They used to give loans to France and Germany and countries and give them gold, gold coins and gold bullion and all that. So they said, no, wait a minute, we need to do something because it's costing us too much, because we're not making as much. So what they did is, they started to mix gold with other metals, like silver and all sorts of things. So when you see gold, it's not really gold. It's a mixture of other alloys, or it's an alloy now of other metals. Alloy is a mixture of metals. So when they started off, it was pure gold. Then they started to mix, and it only looked like gold. So when they paid interest or they paid a loan, paid money to people, it was not genuine gold. So you're not getting the value of gold. You were getting bluffed now. That you think you have gold, but you actually have an alloy. It's not worth the same. So it's not costing the Rothschild dynasty to make it as much as it was, so they're making profit of the difference. This is fact now. In later years, in today's world, they call it debasing the currency. So it's a fact, short changing the currency of clients. So this system of robbery to create debt, if you're going to collect money from the Rothschild Bank in those days, you're collecting an alloy. What you're working for or what you went in for is not what they're giving you, but you're paying interest on the real gold. I'm just using these terms loosely so that your mind can picture what they've been doing. So they built and amassed huge wealth. Why? Because they directly serve Mammon. And in this way, people will be in constant debt around the world, because this banking dynasty began to explode around the world. In Matthew 21, it tells us a story of when Jesus went to the temple and drove out all those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of money changers. Money changers is bankers, and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. What were they doing? They were shortchanging. You see, when you go to the temple to pray, to give offering, you cannot take Roman coins and go in. There were special temple coins that you have to take and go in the Jewish temple, Temple of Solomon, where Jesus was going now. He was about to enter. So people needed to trade the money that the Romans gave them to work, to live. They had to now change that money to buy temple money so that they can go into the temple and give. In order for you to pay or give offerings in Solomon's temple, you had to now do foreign exchange sort of. Change your money, what you use on a daily basis, the Roman coins, you had to change it for temple money. So they had scales. They used to measure the weight of your currency, your coins, silver, whatever you had, and then they put the weight to match the temple coins, and then they'll give you equivalent. Now what these guys used to do, they used to rig the scales. And where they make the money that you are bringing in lighter, and they'll make the money that the temple coins heavier. So they used to rob you. And these were the bankers used to do from those days. And so Jesus came and he was upset, and he turned the tables, he whipped them, chased them away. They called them a den of thieves. Now this is what was happening by the same bankers, because these bankers were Edomites. I told you during the Hasmonean dynasty and the Maccabean revolt, they brought all the Edomites into Jerusalem to take high-ranking positions. And one of the positions that these people were using was banking. So these money changers or bankers, they are the ones who eventually migrated into Germany in later years, and these are the people who we call Ashkenazi Jews. Among these people were the Rothschilds and all these Oppenheimers and all these people that emerged from there in the banking and financial sectors. And Proverbs clearly warns us about this. Dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, but just weight is his delight. This has been Mammon's practice to keep people in debt and hold them bondage for many, many centuries. So what did God do? God said to Israel from the very beginning, because he saw in advance what the plans were by Mammon and the devil and so forth. He said to Israel, when you lend money to anybody, if you are a banker and you lend money to anybody, you must charge no interest. Let me see how strict laws God gave to these people. In the Talmud, you see, because interest creates debt. In the Bava Metzia, one who lends money to a fellow man at interest is like one who sheds blood. Oh, God was very strong. It is forbidden to lend money at interest even to a non-Jew. A person who lends money at interest is considered a wicked person. One who borrows money at interest is considered a slave to the lender. Mammon basically wants you to be its slave. Deuteronomy, in the Bible it says, at the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a release of debts. Besides the fact that you can't charge interest, if you lend somebody money, you cannot charge them interest. And at the end of 7 years, you must forgive that debt. And this is the form of the release. Every creditor who has lent anything to his neighbor shall release it. He shall not require it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. In other words, it was celebrated as a jubilee. There was another one which every 50 years, people that owed money on land, the land will be freed and so forth. In this one, except mortgage of land and so forth, everything else, the debt must be freed. Even on mortgage, there must be no interest charged. God never intended for the bondage of debt through interest. No. Now, let me tell you this here. if the Jews who claim that they are Jews are really Jews, then they would use these principles, for that's what Jewish people will do. So who are they that are posing as Jews but are really not Jews? And you find the Christian world. I want you to look at this. The same people that have them in debt and bondage, that introduced Mammon's system of debt, they sit on the top of the banking pyramid. They control through the demon Mammon all the affairs and financial activities of this world. And it is run by interest and debt. It's choked Christians over centuries. Yet, the Christians will support those very people who claim to be Jews but are not. Sad. 1 John 2:16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but of this world. I am not one of those preachers who dwells on money because it is a possession of Mammon. And our dependence is on God, Jehovah, Jesus Christ. And therefore, it must be left to God inside of people to be who God wants them to be, without manipulation, without fear. And this is the principle on which everything we stand on is built. Now here, having said that, the intention behind what I'm about to share with you from the Talmud has nothing to do with people being forced. Listen to this. Talmud says this. Our rabbis taught, whoever gives ma'asar, that means tithe, their possessions are cleansed and pure. Now, this is the reason for the tithe. That the world money and banking system is controlled and designed by the high spirit, exalted spirit, Mammon. And when it comes into your possession, it's still owned by Mammon. When it reaches your bank account, even in digital form, it's still owned by Mammon. It's Mammon's thing. Just like when wisdom comes, it's God's thing. There's no change in what thing it is. So when it sits there, it's Mammon's thing. And the Talmud is telling us that when you give ma'asar, that's tithe, you cleanse, because now the entire thing is given to God by the tithe to cleanse everything there. So now Mammon has no hold over what you have. And this is a reason for it. So, this is not the reason you need to give to God. No, because you want it clean. No, no. First, the heart must be clean. Second, it must be done out of the joy of your heart. Because I do not rely on that sitting in my bank account to give me joy, Lord. It gives me joy to give to you. And when you do that with the right attitude, the rest of what you have becomes adopted. I will supply all your needs. That's what God tells you. You don't need anything. You don't need to depend on or rely on. Remember, that's his name. The one who people trust in. You don't have to trust in that. You trust in me. And so God uses this as a cleansing mechanism and also as a test. So just be aware that if things start to cripple in your life and it starts to cost you more and more, to a point where you can't even, it doesn't even have to do with money anymore. It costs you everything, your health and all that. You must know that this is the one failure you have, because you brought the curse of Mammon. And everything going forward will cost you even more, will put you into debt. You got to cleanse it. So here's the recipe, beloved. Don't forget to cleanse what you have. But nevertheless, even you that are in debt right now, getting choked, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to feel a deep sense of relief and God inside of you. That, Lord, you will supply everything I need, but I want to have a peace of mind. I'll go to bed with a peace of mind. And you find amazingly that despite how much difficulty financially you are in, there comes a peace over you that you won't be able to explain to anybody. That's the peace of the Holy Spirit. I want you to find it. And then when you pray and you go into your room and you start to praise God and you start to worship God, you find that all the things that your hearts desired that you didn't even ask for, it starts to be supplied. But it's not magic. It's God being God. It's a principle. Don't let Mammon and what it owns dictate whether you are at peace, you're angry, you're unforgiving, you have hate. Don't let that dictate. The world is already designed against you. Don't work against yourself. And lastly, I want to show you the development. There's a system called the ISO 2022. It's already in motion. In essence, it will take away all cash payments. It'll cost them even less to make their own money up. Some of your banks, including South African Standard Bank and so forth, they've already got the ISO 2022. The hidden message behind it is hidden. It's not revealed, but the message is, that's why you'll find banks will start to close down. Many ATMs, they're moving towards digital. So watch the ISO 2022 little video clip.
80 to 90% of the global banks will be adopting ISO 20022. Now, there'll be a load of major events that will happen to cover this up so that the public don't see what's going on. There'll be crypto issues, there'll be market issues. We're about to see the collapse of the stock exchange. That's coming very, very soon, because it's it's teetering right on the brink right now, where the money is already literally spewing out because of the fact that inflation is double what it's supposed to be, and it's nowhere. Everything is going the wrong way. So March and April, that's important. The end of June and July, the Bank of England and CHAPS also joins ISO 20022, and a very significant urethrium upgrade to be fully aligned with Stellar happens at that time. The other thing that's coming is in October, November of this year is when the US joins ISO 20022. Now that just gives you some dates.
Right.
So the US will be the last one to join the gold-backed currency, the asset-backed currency, at the end, October, November of this year. Okay. And we know that because of the way that the whole structure is happening. We've been looking for dates. There's a lot of my American audience will be disappointed that they're last. Well, this is all part of the exposure. And the Biden administration, the residency, they have to let this play out. He is going to visually bankrupt the USA.
Now, Mammon is moving towards total digitality. This lady speaking on behalf of all the Cabal members, listen to her.
We have to achieve the SDGs in 10 years. I'm going to talk about that, but with a quick introduction to the Better Than Cash Alliance. We're hosted by the United Nations, and we are an alliance of governments and companies and international organizations that are each committed, each has to commit before they join the alliance to moving away from cash to some form of digital option. We've got to solve this problem. And we have to solve it because we care about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Did you know that every single government in the world has committed to these? Every single government to agree to these. The government of Norway, the government of Australia, the government of Ethiopia, the government of Rwanda. And the timeline is 10 years from now.
Beloved, Mammon plays a huge role in the end of days. Mammon is mentioned in the book of Revelations. Mammon is the reason why people will have a want for food, a want for this, and you have to have Mammon's mark in order to get it. So I want to pray with you. Get used to it now that, Lord, I don't need and rely on anything else, including my money. For peace, I rely on you. For my provision, for my everything. I want to pray with you. And I want God to meet your need. Father, in the name of Jesus, your children look to you. They search for you. I pray, Lord, as they knock, you will open the door for them to enter. That you will give them a still heart, despite all the difficulties they face financially and every other way, Lord. I pray that you will allow them to escape from this hold of the enemy. In Jesus' name I pray, a total release. And everybody said, Amen. Beloved, God bless you. Have yourself a blessed week. Be free in Jesus' name. God bless. See you next week.